Hello, everyone. Welcome to Jamaica 411. Thank you so much for joining me today. Well, you know, old time people say, when it rains, it pours. And I have a little bit of information for you and hopefully some more that was previously revealed. And this, of course, is about Dr. Dawes and the neurosurgical drill drama. So, as again, I want to thank you all for joining me. If you're my subscribers, welcome back. And if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. And I hope I'm able to provide you with something that you find edifying and that you may leave by saying, I learned something today. That's my aim, always to bring you something that you may not have known before. And for the things you knew, interpret them in a way in which I think they ought to be interpreted. Yes, that's my aim. So again, thank you everyone for joining me. And please, everyone, give the video a thumbs up. Go ahead, give the video a thumbs up from now on and share to at least one person that you know will be interested in this topic. And also feel free to leave your comments in the comments section. And I thank you all in advance. So now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's get down to business. So this is the headline of Nationwide News Network. Now you all know that I love Nationwide News Network. And that is because I find them extremely credible. When it comes to their opinions, yes, they have their own opinions, but when it comes to the news, they bring the news straight without any opinions attached. Of course, they may get it wrong. They may take some risks, like Dawes did, assuming that the information that they have is verifiable and correct, and then it turns out that it is not. That is always a risk of any person bringing you information. I also like the way Nationwide present the online, and particularly that they have the words, written words, and then they have a reporter reading as well. And that is so much nicer for you, I think, to hear them reading it rather than me reading it for you. Yes. Okay, so Dawes faces potential second suit over medical drill claims. And it is reported and posted by Tawna Thomas on the 22nd of May 2025. Today is Labor Day. Happy Labor Day for everyone. And you laborers out there doing your part. I want to thank you very much on behalf of all the people of Jamaica. I'm sure we're all very grateful to you for the efforts that you're making, in some cases on behalf of our children, the elderly, and of course the community. We all thank you very much for that. So we're now going to go to the report by Nationwide News Network, and then of course I will have something to say as usual.
Medical Technologies, in a statement on Wednesday, responded to the allegation stating that the refurbished drill that Dr. Dawes speaks of is different from the drill it purchased for the Children's Hospital. Meditech says its company had the motor component of a different drill it owned repaired overseas last year at a cost of $250,000. It says the drill sold to Sarah is a brand new one. The new drill carries 100 pieces of attachment and is reportedly the first of its kind in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Sarah has maintained that there was a competitive bidding process with 3 suppliers expressing interest by submitting proposals from as low as $12 million to as high of over $50 million. The chairman of Sarah, Wentworth Charles, says the successful bidder provided a comprehensive breakdown of the value of the drill. Speaking on Nationwide this morning on Thursday, Charles explained that internal evaluators at Sarah, including leading neurosurgeons, assessed the proposals before a recommendation was made to the Public Procurement Commission, PPC.
They are the one who would guide you as to specification of the drill that would be required for Bustamante, and we would accept their guidance. They carried out an evaluation on the 3 bids that were selected. One was disqualified because it did not satisfy the specification for the bidding. two of the drill, one for 50 million and the other for 30 odd million. The 30 odd million was the one was selected. It was selected on the basis that it provides value for money, and it was the lowest bid that was selected.
Charles says as part of the internal evaluation, research was also done to establish an indicative price. Sarah's indicative price was $32 million.
We do internal estimate on every matter. And so for our biomed engineer would have done an internal estimate as to what is the likely cost that this drill would fetch, both on the national and international market, with almost over 100 attachment to the drills. And we had an internal estimate, I think, of just over $32 million. And therefore, you can see the variation between the bid that was selected and our Sarah's internal.
According to Sarah, the PPC approved the purchase and cost of acquisition for the drill. The PPC is independent of Sarah, and its members provide keen scrutiny of government contracts in procurement. Meanwhile, the Sarah chairman says given the public nature of what he calls false allegations, the authority may have to take Dr. Alfred Dawes to court.
It will go to our board, and we certainly will be looking at the whole issue concerning defamation, because corporate entity in whom the state placed their trust certainly have an interest in protecting its reputation. And we too will be asking our corporate legal attorney to give us their opinion on this matter, because we think preliminarily we did everything to advise this gentleman, Mr. Dawes, certainly on the process. And the statements he has published in the media, certainly on social media and all over the world, clearly has damaged the reputation of the organization. And we certainly will be seeking legal advice on this.
Charles is calling on Dr. Dawes to apologize.
Apologize, and he owes so many apologies. Because if you don't know an invoice coming from custom that what was sent out is the repair of some machine relating to a drill, and you said that is the payment for a drill, clearly you don't understand.
Dana Davey for Nationwide News.
Well, what can I tell you? What else can I tell you? Except to wonder, as I understand, persons were in that meeting with Dr. Dawes when he went to Sarah on April 23, that 10 a.m. meeting, when he was shown all the things that he had asked for. There were persons who were present who spoke about his behavior. He went there, by the way, with his father, who is also a doctor. You remember that Sarah had rejected the invitation that Lambert Brown should tag along with Dawes, and they rejected him on the basis that he was not a professional. He was not a medical professional, so he would not have served any useful purpose at that meeting. So Dawes went to that meeting with his daddy, who is a medical doctor as well, Dr. Winston Dawes. And I'm told that even after he was shown everything, he had asked for a joint statement between himself and Sarah. And somebody who was there said that Wentworth Charles refused, not going to give any joint statement, and told Dr. Dawes that he needs to go out and apologize, right, for what he had said, because evidently it seemed as if he was convinced at the time that everything was above board. This is my interpretation now. He extended his hand to Wentworth Charles, and Wentworth Charles refused to shake his hand. And that is also in the statement that they had put out of that meeting that same day, April 23. I'm going to read it for you to remind ourselves of what it was that Sarah said took place in that meeting. I understand that Alfred Dawes' behavior was erratic. He got upset and was carrying on. And I was told that he stormed out of the meeting, and when he did, his father put his head in his hands in shame for his son and his son's behavior. I suppose that Sarah would have every reason to believe that the matter was put to rest. If what I'm told is correct, and I'm depending on second-hand information here, that Dawes had asked for a joint statement. In other words, it was an attempt at saving face. And they refused and demanded that he apologize, only to find that he came to call this press conference. Nobody in the People's National Party was with him. Nobody joined him. Lambert Brown was not there. He was the one who brought up the matter in the first place. Legitimately. I mean, if you hear that a drill, even a comrade and I were arguing about it just now. And if you hear of a drill, and a drill costs 31 million, you cannot conceive of what kind of drill that would be that would cost 31 million. And when you look on the little drill them too, you're going to even be more surprised that they could cost 31 million. But then we don't know if this was an innovation by this company, Medtronics. Usually these innovations, if it's them alone that have this type of equipment, sometimes they're very expensive. Now, you will remember that I had said to you that when the Sarah invited Dawes to that meeting and he accepted and he made his demands and the demands were promised. And I told you that he was walking into a trap that he seemed not to recognize that it was. Was it a bad trap? No. It was a trap that was designed, in my view, to protect the interests of Sarah. And when that meeting took place, they had achieved their objective. Immediately after the meeting, on the same day, the Wednesday, April 23, 2025, this was what they said. First, the subject area, Sarah Board Chairman, Mr. Wentworth Charles, met with Dr. Alfred Dawes, opposition spokesperson on health and wellness, to discuss the acquisition of the neurosurgical drill for Bustamante Hospital for Children. And the statement which was put, it was a statement that was put out for media. So it was a media release, right? The board chairman of the Southeast Regional Health Authority, along with other senior officials, met today, Wednesday, April 23, 2025, with Dr. Alfred Dawes, opposition spokesperson on health and wellness for the People's National Party. The meeting focused on matters concerning questions that had been raised regarding the acquisition of a neurosurgical drill for the Bustamante Hospital for Children, which were perceived by some as allegations of corruption. So they're saying he had questions, all of those questions that he was out there asking about this drill. They were in that meeting and they were answering all of those questions. It appears that this is what this is saying. The Sarah press release went on to say, Mr. Wentworth Charles, board chairman, Sarah, invited Dr. Dawes to the meeting in his professional capacity as a medical doctor. During the discussion, Mr. Charles presented all relevant documents for the acquisition of the neurosurgical drill at the Bustamante Hospital for Children to Dr. Dawes, including the relevant documents would suggest everything that is associated with the purchase. That's what relevant would mean. They had brought them to that meeting and they showed it to Dawes. What are these documents, or what did the documents include that he saw? The GoJep advertisement. Remember, he had asked them whether they had advertised to tell the world that they need the supply of this drill. Dawes had asked him that in his letter. He wanted answer. So they're saying that they showed him the document as proof that it was advertised. So the first thing they showed him was a GoJep advertisement. It said, the procurement of the equipment strictly adhered to the Government of Jamaica procurement guidelines, ensuring transparency and value for money. What does that mean? The Public Procurement Act of 2015 sets out the guidelines for when it is that any of the government agencies or bodies, whether ministry or public bodies or parish council, whenever they're going to buy anything using public resources, and none other resources as far as I know, unless I suppose it was a loan or some grant money, there are certain things that they must do. One such thing is that they must accept bids or advertise the service or the goods that they need, right? That is the transparency that he's referring to. And there are sections where they recognize the law that maybe they need equipment or goods or services in a hurry, and it says what they should do. If they, for any reason, bypassing the guidelines, they must state in writing the reason why and submit it to the Public Procurement Commission, which was created and designed to approve government contracts as well as ensure that government was getting value for money. That's the purpose. So when they said that the procurement of the equipment strictly adhered to the government of Jamaica procurement guidelines, ensuring transparency and value for money, that's what they're talking about. The guidelines that's specified in the Public Procurement Act of 2015. They went on to say, the neurological drill was sourced from a reputable supplier and met all international standards for quality and safety. So they are now taking in consideration the end users, which would be the patients at the children's hospital, right? So they're making sure that this equipment is of good quality, meets international standard, and is safe. It is important to note that the SERA engaged in a competitive bidding process, which is one of the requirements under the law. The Public Procurement Act of 2015 requires, first of all, that those goods and services that fall under the Act, there is to be a competitive bidding. That's the first and foremost. You can enter into sole sourcing, and you can enter into what is called invitation to bid. Invitation to bid means that you already know that you don't have many suppliers for something. For argument's sake, let's say you want a particular tile, right? And there are only few manufacturers. So instead of you putting out a bid document and so on, you just send a letter around to the suppliers. And if there are about 5 of them in the world, you send a letter to the 5 of them telling them what you need, the specifications, and ask them to send you a pro forma invoice, giving you what is their best price. And then now you pick one and recommend that one to the Public Procurement Commission. And I do believe it's required that they should accompany that recommendation with a letter explaining why they didn't go competitive bidding, which is where they're going to now advertise and ask persons to come in and bid, right? And in this case, they're saying that they had gone the competitive bidding route. So let us read on. Now, they said it's important to understand that that was what they did. They had engaged in a competitive bidding process, and 3 suppliers expressed interest by submitting proposals from a low of approximately $12 million to a high of over $50 million for the supply and delivery of the neurosurgical drill and advanced attachments for the said drill, including a 2-year preventative maintenance service contract. So the price of $31 million is not only the price of the drill, but also the cost of this preventative maintenance service contract, which is a 2-year contract. And I will soon tell you what that figure is shortly. So this is what Dawes was told. He was told that they never just take the drill and call up somebody and say, source, and say, give me a quotation. They had advertised it On the Government of Jamaica website called GOJEP, it means Government of Jamaica Electronic Procurement Portal. That's where they had advertised the drill that they need, right? And they received 3 suppliers expressing interest and saying that they can supply this drill. What was the specification? We will get to that shortly, hopefully. But you recall Wentworth Charles saying to the NNN reporter that one of the bidders, the one that had bid $12 million, they could not supply all of the attachments. They said the specification for this drill that they must also supply over 100 attachments, right? A number of persons looking at the situation, and they're showing you prices, and when you count the attachments, it's only 20. So in some cases, you see the drills that don't say they have any attachments at all. So they're looking at prices and they forget that the attachments are individual pieces that have their own prices. And you have to know what it was that they were asking for and the price. You can't compare the price now with the other suppliers. But let us continue reading. So they showed him the advertisement that they had placed on the GOJEP website. Next, they showed Alfred Dawes a summary of the evaluation process. Remember, he had asked for that in his letter as a condition of him coming to this meeting. Now, they said the summary of the evaluation and the bid evaluation report for the neurosurgical drill indicated that best practices were followed, ensuring the effective use of public resources. So what it is I mean by that? It means that you have to ensure when you're buying an equipment that it can do all the things that you say you want that equipment to do. So they would have had subjected the drill and all its various pieces to testing, I suppose. And then there is an evaluation report that was done. How many times have we in our private capacity gone out to buy something with the hope that the something can do what it says it can do, and when we take it home, it can't do it? Or it pop down in no time. That has happened to you? Yes, so they can't do that with government resources. And they didn't. So this went on to say, this evaluation and approval. So after the evaluation was done, it had to be approved. So this is what they're saying now. This evaluation approval were conducted by leading neurosurgeons attached to the SERA who ensured that the selected supplier met all the required specifications. So they didn't leave it to the technocrats. The people who would be using these drills, the neurosurgeons, are them that did the evaluation. Then go test out the whole of the equipment, make sure so they are right, and then can do what they are supposed to do. And then them sign off on it and told Sarah, yeah man, everything good. Right? It was the neurosurgeons who had evaluated and approved the drill that the government eventually bought. That's what they're saying, because they had to ensure that every piece of those attachments, right, meet with the specification that they had put in that bid document. Makes sense? The third document they handed to Alfred Dawes at that meeting was a signed evaluation report. They not only told him what the process was, but they gave him a signed report to show that the neurosurgeons had signed off on it. According to the statement, it said the document presented reflects the integrity of the evaluators involved in the process. Those are the neurosurgeons, and no breach was found. Now, when they said no breach was found, who made that determination? According to the statement, Mr. Charles said that the Public Procurement Commission further approved the purchase and the cost of acquisition of the neurological drill. So, the Public Procurement Commission, their responsibility is to ensure that the proper procedure under the law was followed. That's the first thing. And secondly, they are looking to ensure that government gets value for money. So they want to see all of these evaluation that was done and the signing off of the neurosurgeons, the people who will be using the drill. And then they would have had, I'm sure, comparative. They must have supplied some kind of comparative documentation to show them a similar drills and what they cost and so on, to give them some idea as to whether the government is getting value for money. And so, having been satisfied, they then sign off on it and approve the purchase and the price at which the drill was purchased at, that 31 million. That's what this is saying. So they showed Alfred Dawes all of the process in which, from the beginning, when they determined that they needed this drill, they had advertised it to invite competitive bidding, and then they had signed off on one of the drills, having put it through an evaluation process by the persons who will be using the drill in neurosurgeons, and then they recommended the supplier, and the Public Procurement Commission signed off on it, having done their own checks. That's what he had seen when he went to that meeting. So he got all the relevant documentation, and yet he went to the conference on Tuesday and claimed that the process was flawed and that he saw where somebody on the inside was attempting to influence the process to claim that the government was getting value for money. I mean, what is wrong with this guy? Somebody had to do it. And if they did their assessment and found that government was getting value for money, he's saying he did his own assessment. Dawes said that he did his own assessment and the government was not getting value for money, so something was wrong with that guy on the inside. And yet, he cannot show you any quotation from any other company supplying the same drill or a similar one with over 100 attachments that cost less than the 31 million. He has provided no evidence. So what is all this argument about? I don't know, but let us continue. Let us see what else they told him. They went on to say in the press release, Mr. Charles noted that it was reported in the Jamaica Gleaner that the neurosurgical drill was for $5 million in China by Dr. Dawes. So Dawes was saying that there is a drill, a neurological drill, and could get for $5 million in China. But at the time when he was running his mouth, did he know what the requirements were? What the specifications were when he was running his mouth? Well, we don't know. But evidently in the meeting, Mr. Charles had reminded him of what the Gleaner had reported him, Alfred Dawes, as saying that he could have get this, or we could have gotten this drill from China for $5 million, having reminded him of what he said. They went on to say the chairman explained to Dr. Dawes that the details of the invoice received from the recommended supplier provided a comprehensive breakdown of the value of the neurosurgical drill at a cost of $31,467,708. The amount included the cost of the equipment, the descriptions of over 100 pieces of attachment, as well as a 2-year preventative maintenance service contract. Mr. Charles then asked Dr. Dawes if he had any further questions regarding the acquisition of the neurological drill. Dr. Dawes responded that he had no further questions as, and they're quoting him now, he clearly understood what had taken place. That sounds like a open-ended comment. But what Sarah is saying, that they had not only provided him with the evidence. Remember I was talking about evidence? They provided him with the evidence, the documentation, the written documentation of what the process was and how they arrived at this particular supplier and this particular equipment. They went on to tell him, they did not just tell us that, okay, so you want a drill and over 100 attachments, well, that won't cost you 31 million. No. They itemize the drill, what the cost of the drill is. Then each one of those 100 plus attachments, each one of them had their own individual price. They were separate units. And then at the end of it, the computer or the software that it was tabled in would have sum it up and say that the cost is 31 million and change. You understand? Yes. So that's what he explained to Dawes, right? So they had an opportunity to look at the individual component parts and the quotes that they were giving them, and they could have gone and made comparison of the net if that was how they did it. I don't know how they did it, but they had an opportunity to see whether they were getting value for money for each one of these parts. That's what he explained. He then said that the 31 million includes a 2-year preventative maintenance service contract. And I do believe that that costs something like 4.5 million. So you have to take that out of the 31 million. And so the drill and the attachments would have cost $27 million. You follow? And that was what they wanted him to know. Having provided him with all of those things, they asked him, do you have any further questions? And he said no further questions, as he clearly understood what has taken place. The statement went on to say, Mr. Charles explained further that the management of Sarah had not purchased any similar drill in the last 3 years. Dawes had wanted to know if they did. And they're saying they didn't, for the record, in that meeting, in front of all the other persons who were at the meeting as well. In fact, he noted that this life-saving neurosurgical drill that was purchased for Bustamante Hospital for children, life-saving neurosurgical drill, is the first of its kind in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Had Dr. Dawes been a sensible fellow, that ought to have given him a clue as to the expense of this piece of equipment, which would be the reason why it's the first of its kind in Jamaica or the Caribbean. He emphasized that the procurement process was fair and that all required procedures were followed by the parties involved. Mr. Charles also stated that the care of our children remains a top priority and that the best equipment must be provided to our dedicated healthcare professionals utilizing modern technology to improve patient outcomes. So he told him that the primary concern that they had when they were purchasing this equipment was for the care of those children, and they needed to have the best. Basically what he was saying, that price was never going to be an issue as long as what they're getting is the best equipment for the healthcare professionals to utilize in the care of our children, because they are our priority, not the money. Seems to be what he was saying here. The statement went on to say the state-of-the-art neurological drill is designed to support critical brain and spinal surgeries in pediatric patients, those are the children, significantly enhancing the hospital's neurological capabilities. The drill will benefit multiple specialties at the Bustamante Hospital for Children, including neurosurgery on the brain, facial-maxillary surgery, I think it's the face they're talking about, and the ear, nose, and throat departments. So this one drill with its whole heap of attachments will be able to do multiple different types of surgeries for our children. This is what he's reporting. Additionally, Mr. Charles stated that the medical team will no longer have to wait on overseas missions before critical care can be provided to our children, especially those with scoliosis. So before we had this equipment, we had to depend on foreign people to come down, whenever they are able to and perform these surgeries with their equipment. So now we have it for ourselves and we can now perform the surgeries ourselves. So they went on to say, the meeting reflects Sarah's continued commitment to stakeholder engagement, transparency, and ensuring the highest standards of care for Jamaica's children. The acquisition of this vital piece of equipment marks another step forward in strengthening specialized pediatric care at the nation's only dedicated children's hospital, and a historic milestone has been achieved in the healthcare system. This was what Wentworth, Charles, and Sarah wanted to get out into the public when they invited Dawes to this meeting. Right? Finally, the chairman of Sarah rejected Dr. Dawes' assertion that there was any improper process in the acquisition of the neurological drill at Bustamante Hospital for Children. And at the end of the meeting, the chairman refused to shake his hand as he did not see his conduct as distinguished, having failed to apologize to Sarah for the misstatement he made in the public domain. And then they say, see letters attached to this statement from Mr. Charles to Dr. Dawes for further context. So he was supposed to come there now that they explain everything to him, and be a big man and say, oh, okay, I get it now. I apologize for the things that I said. He refused to apologize and wanted instead a joint statement to be put out. And so, Charles, I'm not shaking your hand. You know, distinguish yourself. Having been provided with all of the proof and the information, you talk about you are there and you are looking out for our best interest and the transparency about how public funds are being spent. But can you complain that Sarah did not give you all the information that you needed? I don't think so. And still you would not apologize. And so the statement went on to say, Sarah's management team remains fully committed to safeguarding the health and future of our children in Jamaica and across the Caribbean. We reaffirm our commitment to our motto, people caring for people. That is at the heart of all our endeavors. And then Dawes organized a conference on Tuesday, May 20, 2025, almost a month after, to come and say that these people were evil for buying this drill that they could have gotten for $250,000. Then it turned out that the document he had in his hand, if he can read and write, it must have said very clearly that it was a part. We challenge Dr. Dawes to produce that invoice. Let us see the invoice and the customs documents. Block out whatever you want block out and make we see it. Because we want to see the description. We cannot believe you're so dunce that you could see a part, a motor for an equipment and talk about, say, it was an equipment that was purchased. Huh? And then out there maligning people and talking about them corrupt. I may want to agree with those persons who were at that meeting with you on the 23rd of April. They were questioning your mental capacity. Is there something wrong with you? Because you could not have gone to this meeting and gotten all this comprehensive information and then come talking foolishness again. And talking about the process, the procurement process was flawed without saying what the flaw was. And on top of that, he was insisting that the drill that was bought was the model EM200. That was, he kept saying it. That was the one that was bought and that was what was imported by Medical Technologies Limited for $1,600 US plus the customs duty. And so they ended up spending $250,000. He kept saying it was the EM200. Where did he get that information from? Who told him that the drill at the Bustamante Children's Hospital was an EH200 drill? Who told him that? He had Sarah, he could have asked. He didn't. He went to this press conference asking whether the drill was different. He never said he asked them and they refused to tell him. This man is nothing but a troublemaker, creating public mischief, seeking relevance, because he had it all planned out. He went to the JLP office with his gimmicks, this gimmickry. Gimmicks. Him clearly don't take our business seriously. It's all about gimmicks and giving himself a forward. So that people can be talking about him, and it doesn't matter whether them saying good things or bad things, at least people talking about him. Well, I sincerely hope them go through with it and so is us. And that will give him something to think about. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining me again today, for sharing, liking, subscribing, and leaving your comments in the comments section. Until next time, take very good care of yourselves and walk good.